A stately man, not exultantly yelling at a young girl. He was sure she had poisoned his own daughter. The man was furious that he had sheltered and given her the opportunity to learn from the best mentors, and she had paid him so cruelly. The girl said she didn't hurt Vivian. Listening to his words, the young lady remembered how she was taken from the orphanage to an aristocratic family. She knew it was not done in good faith. The daughter of the head of the family was gravely ill, and an orphan girl was taken to replace her, as Vivian was to marry the prince. The girl wanted to have a real family, but unfortunately for her, she was just a substitute. My whole life was fake. No one wanted her. It was very frustrating for her. The enraged man punched the girl, and she fell to the floor. The poison, he was told, was found in the tea leaves the girl had brought to Vivian. He shouted at her that she would never be queen, for she was a commoner. The young lady denied everything. She said her engagement had been broken off long ago, and it made no sense for her to hurt her sister. But her foster father did not believe her. He was sure that she was jealous of his own daughter, because she had become the bride of Prince Ares, and so she poisoned her. He knew she did it because she wanted to get rid of the competition. In desperation, the girl said that if she wanted to hurt Vivian, she wouldn't have done such an obvious trick. The man was outraged at what he heard. In a rage, he held a sword to his adopted daughter's face. In the Gogony, he screamed furiously and asked how she could do such a thing to the prince's fiancée. Their family scuffle was interrupted by a young man who announced that Prince Ares had arrived. He told his father he'd deal with the girl himself. Their father's gone, leaving the young men alone. Wood was glad when he saw the girl in such a deplorable condition. She said she knew everything. It was the young man who set her up. The girl also asked him if he knew that if his sister drank the tea, she would surely die after being cured of the dreaded disease. The young man only smirked. He knew she wouldn't prove anything. He'd hated her since she'd been in their house, and was glad if she was gone. He also told the young lady that he did not act alone. He was ordered by the Empress to organize everything. The young heir was sure that the girl seduced the prince and thus caused displeasure to the Empress. He tossed her a vial of poison. The girl took it and drank it quietly. As she was dying, she told her foster brother that she was living her 7th life and just wanted a real family. But she has no intention of playing games anymore. The young lady looked at her wrist. There was the last life there. She had to live it differently than the others. Nivea has long endured all the torment. Now you have to live for yourself. The girl woke up in her room in the bright afternoon. She had always been reborn in her body of 8 years, and always wondered how long she'd live this time, how much she'll be tortured this time. Nivea knew firmly that this life was going to be very different. The girl saw the number on her wrist disappear. She realized that this was her last life. The girl just wanted to have a family and be loved, and didn't understand the reason for her rebirths. The young girl just wanted to be taken away from such a family. The young girl was crying when she heard a noise from behind the door and realized that Wood had locked her in. She recalled how in her 4th life, while rushing to class, she fell off a balcony, but there were times when she survived the fall. The field of such Wood always mocked her. Wood was always bullying his foster sister. He disliked her from the beginning, but over time he simply hated her. The girl went to the door. That one was barred. She found a hole in the door. Wood had made it to let bees through. The girl decided to use the hole. With the help of a chair, she pulled out the butter, poured it through the hole, and set the door on fire. The fire was not enough for her, so she took the books and threw them into the fire. Nivea told herself that the last obedient girl had already died, and only she alone could protect herself. Agnes went out onto the balcony and started screaming frantically and begging for help. She wanted everyone to see the fire and her defenseless in the clutches of death. At the shouts, servants came running. They saw the fire and a little defenseless girl asking for help. The girl was not in very good condition. They tried to put out the fire, but unfortunately, their strength was not enough. Upon seeing the fire, Wood yelled for them to put the fire out faster since his playroom was nearby. He didn't care about anything else. He didn't like his half-sister, so much so that her life mattered little to him. The lord of the house came to the noise, and with the help of his magic, managed to put out the fire. The lord looked at Nivea and thought that he couldn't lose a gem like her. He ordered a doctor to be brought to her. The babysitter was shocked at what had happened. She asked Wood how he was feeling and if he was okay. Jesus stood watching. He thought Wood might be involved in what was going on. He also didn't rule out the possibility that some of the other families might have started the fire because he had adopted the girl. But when he heard that there was a hole in the door and someone had poured oil in it, he realized it was very petty. The man shouted to the nanny and asked if she knew anything about what was going on. Philippa hesitated, not knowing what to say. She knew Wood had made the hole in the door. Wood, ahead of her, shouted that he was the one who made the hole. He said he didn't see it as a big deal as he was just playing around. Nivea quietly approached and timidly said that she had asked him to open the door. Everyone started whispering. They realized that Wood was the instigator of the fire. Wood was at a loss as to what he was being accused of. The Lord stood and thought about the situation. He knew that everyone wanted to destroy Agnes's family. After all, they were the owners of the largest and highest quality magic stone mine, and everyone would be happy to see them decline. Especially the family of the Empress's mother, Lucia. Their main income was magic trains that consumed magic stones as fuel. In exchange for a cheap supply of stones, the Duke was going to make a deal that would make his daughter an empress. But many eyes were fixed on Nivea. The Duke knew that if the fact that the girl was of plebeian descent surfaced, there would be big trouble. But everyone who knew was silenced. The Duke realized that his son had something to do with the fire. He shouted at him furiously. But the man only said he had locked up the girl and had nothing to do with the fire. Wood asked Nivea who set her on fire. Wood was surprised that the girl was just standing there looking at him, not trembling like she always did. In a fit of rage, he hit her. Nivea slumped. She knew no matter what she said now, they would all believe her. Falling to her knees, the girl began apologizing to her brother and saying he didn't do anything. Wood was pleased. The master looked at everything that was going on and ordered that Nivea bring in a doctor, and he grounded Wood, saying he was on probation. The nanny told the master that he had punished his son too harshly, but the man was furious at what was happening and said that if she would have watched the children better, nothing would have happened. He also ordered Nivea to be moved to the 3rd floor. Wood was shocked, but his father said if he behaved differently, his punishment would be harsher. Winnie knew who was involved in the fire, but she knew she had to keep quiet, and even knowing the truth, not say anything to anyone. Because the truth will make her very sick. Walking to her room, Nivea pondered why she wanted so much to be like, outwardly, her family. She had red eyes and blonde hair. Such features really made her stand out. She wasn't happy with it before. The girl knew she had to be strong, no matter what. Nivea knew that there was a similar sequence of events in all 8 lives. Within a year of Vivian's recovery, she was bound to die. The disease of magical reflux is incurable. However, after 12 years, when Nivian becomes an adult, a cure will be found. The girl knew that she would spend all of her 20s living with her family and finding a way to please them. Nivea knew she had to leave her family. The sooner the better. Prince Ares was involved in her passing. He didn't care about her status. He just frantically wanted to possess the girl. Nivea knew that if she wanted to leave her family, she needed to do 2 things. Cure my sister and find a guardian among the aristocrats. The girl already knew what medicine could help her sister. She also had options for custody. Duke Lark Esselred was single in his 30s and had no heir, but the second Prince Creed would become his adopted son upon the death of Empress Estelle. From her knowledge from past lives, the girl knew that there was still time before the prince appeared. The whole year will be empty, and she'll be able to do whatever she sets her mind to. She was frantic to leave her family and get rid of this attitude. Nivea sat and quietly thought about everything. Her musing was interrupted by a maid. Charlotte brought her some food. Nearly knocking Charlotte off her feet, the nanny walked into the room. She was very angry and wanted the girl to go to the Duke and on her knees beg for forgiveness. The nanny was very angry and wanted the girl to apologize as she had inconvenienced the young master. He was grounded for the day. She thought it was too harsh a punishment for Wood. The nanny dragged Nivea by the hand. The young lady said she knew what she could talk about the nanny embezzling money by passing it off as child support. The nanny was shocked at what she heard, but the girls knew that every time the Duke found out about something like this, he killed the nanny. The woman was too careless to get away with it. In response to the accusations, the nanny only yelled that she was too devoted to the family to do such a thing. Mentally, the nanny wondered how the young girl could know of her machinations. The nanny screamed that Nivian had no evidence of her crime, to which the girl calmly replied that you could go to the Duke and tell him everything, and he would decide whether it was true or not. The nanny was very angry at this behavior of the girl. In a fit of anger, she pushed her and she fell to her knees. The doctor saw what was happening. Charlotte quickly ran to Nivea and asked how she was feeling. Nivea only said that she knew Nanny was not happy with her, since she was now living on the 3rd floor, but she was puzzled as to how Nanny could do that to her. She was just doing the Duke's bidding. Hearing such a statement, the nanny was more than a little surprised. The doctor, seeing their scuffle, asked Philippa how she could contradict an order. The nanny said the girl was lying and that pushing her was an accident. Philippa stood and thought for a long time what she should do in such a situation. Her musing was broken by Nivea, by the fact that she said she would keep quiet and say nothing to the Duke. The nanny left in a hurry. The doctor began to examine Nivea. Charlotte said as she walked the girl to bed. Nivea remembered that the maid had followed in her nanny's footsteps. Thinking back, she thought she could use such an ally. After examining the girl, the doctor said she had no serious injuries. After the examination, Nivea asked the doctor not to tell about the incident with the nanny, as she would not like to be punished. The doctor agreed to remain silent and left. Nivea told Charlotte to stick around. They talked about the situation that happened. The girl knew she needed a maid. Ta will run every meaningful errand. Nivea told Charlotte what would happen if she went and told the Duke everything. The girl was perplexed. She didn't know what she should do. Nivea offered to work for her and she could have what Philippa enjoys. Charlotte affirmatively said that she was not very fond of Agnes's family. Everyone around them, and especially Nivea, knew that she would never be a family member to them. She was just a temporary replacement. After the sister was cured, the girl would be gotten rid of. Nivea asked Charlotte if she was willing to cooperate. The girl hesitated a little, but still agreed. Nivea said that she needed to go to the cook and tell him that she suspected Philippa of stealing. They talked some more about the plan, and Charlotte left. Nivea decided to get some rest. As the girl fell asleep, she had an eerie dream. A large red eye looked down at her from above and devoured her, as suddenly the half-moon protected her, leaving a mark on her wrist. The girl woke up startled. Nivea saw a crescent moon-shaped mark on her wrist. The young lady was puzzled as to why he had appeared just now. She didn't know what the sign was before she had never seen it before. Charlotte came in and brought Nivea some food. The girl saw that she hadn't touched her food and asked if she was okay. Nivea asked the girl if she had done what she had ordered her to do. The girl said she had done everything. Nivea wondered if anyone else could see the mark on her wrist besides her. But no matter what hints she threw, Charlotte didn't see anything, only saying that the girl needed new clothes since she had outgrown her dress. Nivea ate and decided to go to class. As she walked, the girl pondered the fact that if she wanted to leave her family, she needed to cure her sister of her illness. Her teacher, Edward Spencer, a former professor at the Academy in the Holy Empire, will help her in this endeavor. Only the children of the elite who actually had abilities attended the Academy. Having a brilliant past need force the professor to be a tutor in Agnes's family. The professor was unhappy with this title, but he had no choice. The main reason why he was appointed was because he knew how to use a mind control spell. Using magic, he compelled Nivea to love and be loyal to Agnes's family. The professor knew it was cruel to the child, but he had to do so because he wanted to cure his brother of his reflux disease. He actively utilized the family's resources. This disease affects children who are born to mage parents. They do not live to adulthood. At one point, the power leaves the body and the child dies. Nivea walked into the office and said a polite hello to the professor. The one was puzzled as to how she was able to master the knowledge of etiquette in one day. He thought she was just pretending. The teacher decided to put all thoughts aside and began to teach the lesson. Started with a story, asked a few questions. Nivea answered everything and even told more. The teacher was shocked to hear her tell it all. He didn't understand how she knew some of the information if he hadn't taught her. Nivea, with the most nonchalant face, told the teacher that he was not required to teach her anymore. Edward Spencer was furious at her statement. He went through all of her notes. They were just perfect. He knew he couldn't do it without help. Edward Spencer asked the girl if she had any other teachers. But Nivea said with a chuckle that not. More the number of teachers could reveal her origins. The man didn't understand why she was telling him this, and tormented himself with doubts that the mind control magic hadn't worked. Nivea told the teacher that she knew how to cure people with magical reflux. He was furious and at a loss as to how she knew he needed such information. The girl said she was the only one who knew such information and no one else. The teacher tried mind magic on her. For the past year, she had been magically instilled with a love for her family and a desire to always protect them. But it wasn't working out for him. The girl said she destroyed his magic. He was amazed at what he heard. It just couldn't happen. Nivea looked at the dumbfounded teacher and said she wanted to make a contract with him, one that would be beneficial to everyone. The young lady told the teacher 3 basic conditions, and he agreed to enter into a contract with her. He had no choice. He wanted to help his family man, and with the girl's help he would succeed. After the contract was concluded, Nivea told what the teacher should do to cure the patient. After hearing the solution to the problem, he said this way might work. He was in amazement and couldn't understand why he hadn't thought of this before. The girl recalled how in her 6th life it was on the recommendation of her teacher that she was sold to the king. She frantically begged me not to. But her petition was not heard by anyone. Nivea thought maybe in this life he would change and be kinder to her. The girl left the teacher. As she walked, she remembered how she had to sacrifice her 7th life to break the spell. She is now free to control her will. Her musing was interrupted by Wood. He wanted to get back at her for her shenanigans. He yelled at her in a rage. Nivea asked that he wanted to kill her. The boy was at a loss for words from her. Nivea walked over to him, took his hand and put it to her throat. She said their father would be happy for him to kill her. The boy recoiled from her, thereby pushing Nivea towards the water trap. Floundering in a watery pillar of water, the girl remembered she had already had such feelings in her past death. When her carriage overturned and she fell into the water, she realized that death was no accident. She had been murdered. Nivea couldn't let herself be killed again. To her surprise, the crescent moon on her wrist absorbed Wood's magic. She fell. He was in amazement as he had not expected such a thing. He hoped to punish her so she would know who to fear. The girl turned Wood's stolen magic against him. Nivea knew that since she wasn't a mage, she couldn't maintain magic for long. She knew he wouldn't be trapped for long, and he wouldn't die. Nivea decided to take advantage of the situation and called for help. Duke Agnes, standing at the window reading a letter from the Empress. The latter was very interested in Nivea and wanted to see a portrait of her kin. The Duke knew this would happen and had prepared in advance. His musing was broken by the teacher's arrival. Leading the conversation with Duke, the teacher asked if yesterday's incident could have caused her emotional shock. The Duke marveled. Edward Spencer said that mind control has weakened. In order to fix this, she needs to take it easy. Their conversation was interrupted by the cry of a maid. The men quickly ran to the 1st floor. The maid said Wood got caught in a water column but got out in time. Duke knew that something had happened between Nivea and Wood, as the latter was also wet. The Duke approached Nivea and asked what had happened. The girl knew he was applying mind control magic to her. Nivea knew she had to finish the play so the Duke wouldn't suspect a thing. She said she asked Wood to show her magic, and it was all her fault. Nivea ran to her brother and asked in an affectionate voice if he was okay. Wood swooped down in a rage and knocked her to the floor and started punching her. He yelled that the girl was a monster, and he would kill her. The Duke stopped him, taking him away from her. Wood screamed that the girl had stolen his magic and used it against him. He was sure that her father would punish her for all the deeds she had committed against him. The Duke was surprised because wannabe wizards are a priceless trophy. Duke began to study the magic around Nivea, but he only saw Wood's magic. Nivea said she saw the color blue when Wood started using magic, and then he got stuck in a water pillar. Duke said it was just a mana release. He told Wood to be careful and sent Nivea to rest. Wood was furious. He yelled that no such thing had happened and she was lying. But unfortunately, no one listened to him or believed him. Nivea was walking down the steps when suddenly Charlotte came to her and gave her a blanket as she was wet. Just as suddenly, Nivea was called out by her sister. The little girl asked what Nivea was doing on the 3rd floor. The maids laughed quietly at Nivea. Since Vivi's question sounded like a rebuke, Nivea in turn apologized to her sister and said that because of the maid's laughter, she had not heard the question. The girl asked her again what Nivea was doing on the 3rd floor. Nivi said she was now living in one of the rooms. Vivi was overjoyed. Running up to her sister, she hugged her tightly. After the hug, Vivi asked her sister why she was wet. Charlotte would have liked to tell, but Nivea said she got wet. Vivi was very angry and said she would go to her brother herself and ask him to play with her. She was very hurt that she wasn't taken to play. Vivi ran at full speed to her brother. Nivi and Charlotte were surprised. Charlotte said that Vivi had done something ugly to her and added that Nivea needed to change. Nivea said she would change her own clothes and go to the library and let Nivea went to the library. She wanted to know more about the crescent moon. The Wood was screaming furiously, threatening to kill Nivea. The Duke only looked at him with contempt. Just as suddenly Vivi came in and asked. The Duke was angry at his son for treating his own daughter like that. He chastised him and told him that if he didn't stop, his punishment would be harsher. Wood apologized to his father. As he left, the Duke told the servants that the Duke was sitting in his study when suddenly Charlotte came in and brought him a snack from Nivea. The Duke tried it and liked it very much. He thought the girl was very much in the role of the perfect child. Nivea was sitting in the library when suddenly Charlotte came in and brought her some warm tea. Charlotte revealed that she had taken the snack away, and the gentleman had ordered her clothes from a brand-name boutique as a thank you. Charlotte was very... Nivea remembered how in her previous life, Vivi always... Wood was very angry. He was screaming and being dishonored. The babysitter came running in. The nanny told the young gentleman that she would do anything for him. Philippa said she had no intention of sitting idly by. The nanny was preparing a revenge. Nivea sat in the library all night and found nothing. The girl was upset, as she had hoped. Charlotte came to see her, and they had a nice chat. Charlotte said she would bring her a nibble of many delicious things. She said the chef made apple juice. Charlotte went into the kitchen. She saw Vivi's maids. They mocked her, and they took all the apple juice. Charlotte didn't like the behavior of the maids. They talked down to her. Charlotte didn't want to break. They were about to leave when one of the maids dropped a tray of food. The girl was holding her stomach and shaking violently. Others grumbled at Charlotte for discreetly changing the juice. Charlotte walked over to Nivea. The maid brought her food and apple juice. The girl put the medicine into the juice after learning what happened in the kitchen between the maids. Charlotte was surprised, but then thought that the medicine was bitter, but mixed with juice would be just fine. Suddenly, without knocking, a maid and the maid started accusing Charlotte of taking the juice that was meant for Vivi, so also stirred the medicine. Suddenly, their argument was broken by a girl's scream. Nivea fell to the floor, holding. Charlotte threw herself at the girl. She didn't realize what was going on, but then she remembered that Nivea had poured the medicine into a glass. The maid started to figure out what the problem was. They were having a loud discussion. To make sure there was medicine in the juice, I decided to drink the juice. She was greatly surprised when she realized there was medicine in there. Maki screamed that it couldn't be. Charlotte said Maki came here with accusations without hard evidence. Maki faltered and said that the juice must have been made from stale fruit. Charlotte asked the butler not to say anything about it to anyone. Butler said he wouldn't say anything to anyone, but ordered Maki to bring a doctor for Nivea, adding that such an act was unforgivable, and if Nivea told Charlotte to pour the juice into a vase. Charlotte said she wanted to do that herself and hurriedly poured out the juice, to cover our tracks. The butler met the gifts and said to take them to the 3rd floor. The maid saw all the presents and rushed to Vivi to tell her that the gifts had been brought to her. Vivi was looking forward to the presents and asked the maid to see when they would arrive. The maid looked and realized that the gifts were being carried by Nivea. Vivi ran out to the maid and saw the gifts being carried in the other direction. She realized to whom they were being carried. The store representatives dropped off the gifts and left. Charlotte said there were about 30 gifts. They opened one. There was a dress. Nivea said that these gifts were prepared for Vivian given to Charlotte saw the pin and realized that this was one thing that would fit the girl. She set it aside for Nivea to pick it up later. Charlotte went to get the Nivea knew she would be meeting Ethelred soon. In all her life, the girl had never seen him once. There were only rumors about him. Prince Creed came out as Ethelred's receiver. But before he entered the inheritance, he faced many challenges. Nivea first saw him at the ball after an unpleasant incident. They spilled wine on her dress at the ball. Confused, the girl saw Creed. He graciously offered her a cloak and left her company. The girl never used it. Vivian lay in her bed while the doctor examined her. He told Duke that she had suffered a serious emotional breakdown. The Duke called the maids and began to reprimand them because of what had happened, but they said that Nivea had provoked Vivian on purpose, and it wasn't the first time. Nivea came to her father, holding a small box in her hands. She was about to tell her father for the gift, and then the nanny came flying into the room like a thunderclap. The nanny grabbed Nivea's hand and she dropped the gift. The girl timidly picked up the gift and said she only wanted that stiletto. Looking at the girl, the Duke said that she was Princess Agnes and could want and get what she wanted. And she doesn't need to return the... Philippa was furious at what was happening. In her anger, she said many things to the Duke about Nivea, but when the Duke questioned her about the girls, she hesitated and apologized, but the Duke was furious. He drew his sword and began to communicate with them differently. The women were terrified and begged for forgiveness. Vivian woke up, seeing what was happening. She tearfully asked her father not to kill the maid and nanny. The Duke listened to her. He tells Nivea that all the gifts are hers, and she does. Nivea was walking to the room when suddenly she fell to her knees. She's tired of everything. It was mentally difficult for her. As she entered the room, she saw Charlotte lying unconscious on the floor. Nivea wanted to rush to the maid and call for help, but she was caught off guard by her brother, who stood with a smug smile. Wood stood over her with a satisfied look. The boy was proud of what he had done. He, with his anger, ordered Nivea to be beaten. The girl was struck and fell to the floor. He looked forward with trepidation to the hour of reprisal against her. Wood ordered the maid to be locked up in one of the abandoned warehouses and the girl brought into the room so that he could converse with her. The young gentlemen were... Nivea was brought to one of the abandoned warehouses. Wood wanted to beat her up quickly without anyone seeing her bruises. Just then, one of his servants said that a knight had been assigned to the boy and he needed to hurry. Wood decided to deal with the... Philippa paced nervously around the room, not knowing what she should do. The woman decided to set Charlotte up. She took the record book and put Charlotte's name in it, and in addition left the maid. Philippa told everything to the butler, and he ordered the cook and... The butler asked where Charlotte was. She was searched for and couldn't be found, just like Nivea. Philippa said she could have hidden or run away. Butler pondered the situation. The man said he found Charlotte locked in one of the storage rooms. Philippa said nervously as the cook decided to punish Charlotte. The butler told the Duke everything. He was furious about everything that was going on in his house. He didn't want any fuss near his family right now, as he wanted to talk to the Empress about... When Nivea woke up, she didn't realize where she was or what was going on. The girl sat down, calmed down, and remembered what Wood had done to her. She knew she had to get out of... Nivea decided not to sit still. She started looking for a way out. The girl found the door, but it was forbidden. Nivea was in despair as then she saw water on the floor. The girl pushed the box aside. She saw a dog hole. The hole was small, but Wood walked toward Nivea and reflected on the fact that everyone had turned the house upside down looking for the girl. He wanted to get it over with immediately. Just then he saw Nivea. She managed to escape from the warehouse. He ordered... The servant caught the girl, but she hit him with a pin and broke free. Wood was angry that the servant had missed her. It wasn't his plan for the girl to escape. Wood caught Nivea and pulled her close to him. He was frantic to get even. Wood wanted to use magic to cause her the pain and suffering she had caused him. Wood was screaming at her that she was nothing and nobody, and even without a crumb of magic, he could hurt her. Nivea knew she could absorb all of the boy's power. A loud explosion followed. The Duke saw it through the window. He quickly ran toward them. Duke realized that Wood had kept Nivea. The boy was in serious condition. Nivea was lying next to him. There were no abrasions on her. The Duke pondered the situation. He knew there was no hiding it, and the culprit had to be found. He saw the girl's Wood's servant was brought to the Duke, and he begged for forgiveness and said he was only following orders. Duke said it was all his fault, and Wood went to save his sister. The Duke ordered the servant to be thrown into the dungeon. The Duke wanted to deal with all the trouble personally as soon as possible, so that rumors don't reach the Empress. These rumors could ruin and tarnish his family's honor and reputation. He couldn't allow this, as he had plans for the Emperor's family in the future. The servants were whispering about what had happened to Charlotte. They were excited about what was happening and questioned Charlotte. Unable to stand it, the Duke and the butler were discussing the current situation with the theft of the money. Suddenly they heard a noise. They saw the servants who had come to inform them of the theft of the money directly by Philippa. Duke asked the doctor how Wood was feeling. The doctor said the butler informed the Duke that Sir Spencer wanted to see him. On a matter of urgency, the Duke said he'd see him later, but he was serious, and he wanted a meeting immediately. Sir Spencer came to the Duke and told him extremely wonderful news. He could have cured Vivian. The Duke was beyond thrilled at such news. Sir Spencer, along with the Duke, went to Vivian. Sir managed to help the girl and cured her. The Duke knew that his daughter could now become Empress. The Duke told Sir Spencer that for his Edward Spencer said he wanted to see Nivea before he left. He also asked the Duke what he would do with the girl. The Duke was in no hurry to answer. And Sir has offered to make her heir to the Duchy of Esselred. Sir said that such a move would further benefit the family. The Duke thought about the offer. It seemed favorable to him, too. After Wood and Nivea married, he would acquire good connections and be very wealthy. Nivea woke up and saw that she was in her room. The girl was scared that Wood had caused her to miss her escape. She called for the maid. The maid told the girl what had happened to Nanny and her maid, and also told her that Wood did not remember anything. The girl was Sir Spencer informed Nivea that he had cured her sister and was going to ride with the Duke to the Empress. As he left, he told her to take care of herself. Nivea was surprised at such words. While contemplating an escape, she decided to take a little walk. Walking around the house, Nivea saw Vivian. She ran to Nivea and told her that she was completely cured. She was very happy and excited, and she said things would be different from now on. Vivi said that since she is cured, Nivea doesn't need to fulfill the role of a princess now. Nivea agreed, saying she was really worried about the nanny. She could be killed, and no one would step up to defend her. Nivea went to the laundry room and found Charlotte. She told the girl that she could help her leave her family and start her own business. Charlotte was pleased and grateful to Nivea. The girl said it's too early to get excited, and she's helping her since Charlotte has to do the work for her. Voodoo has been informed that Charlotte wants to come in to talk to him. He knew that this maid was Nivea. Wood didn't understand what she wanted. Wood wondered why Nivea had sent her to him, but still told her to come in. The girl came in and said that Nivea would keep quiet about what had happened, and that since his sister had been cured, Nivea would be placed in the care of another family. Nivea will be able to become the young master's equal, and the Duke said he would consummate their marriage, but if the master wants to, it can be avoided. Wood was angry and shocked at what he heard. He couldn't believe his father could do that to him. He wanted to know how he could avoid marrying Nivea. Suddenly the nanny flew into their room. She screamed at Charlotte. In a fit of anger, she attacked her and started to be. Wood ordered Nanny to be taken to the dungeon where she belonged. The woman was shocked. Wood ordered Charlotte to tell Charlotte further what he needed to do. He wanted to execute their plan and get rid of Nivea, but he also wanted to make some sort of amendment. He had already mentally thought of all. Nivea wanted to sell all her gifts and asked the butler to do so. She said she wanted to give the family. Charlotte returned to Nivea and said that she had done everything. Nivea gave her the money and told her she had to go to cancel the contract and pay the fine. Nivea was coming down the stairs. Suddenly, I caught Vivi and the babysitter. The butler told the nanny to go back to the dungeon. The nanny said that Vivi would soon be empress, and they should listen to the girl. The butler asked where Nivea was going. The girl said she wanted to go shopping for presents. He said he would have a crew ready for her immediately. Just as suddenly, a maid came in and announced that the carriage was. Nivea came out and saw who was waiting for her. She got into the carriage the gentleman had so kindly provided, and they drove off. Nivea rode in the carriage and remembered her plan and what Charlotte had told Voodoo. He knew partly half of the plan. They stopped. Nivea knew the mercenaries had already arrived. While they were having a conversation, the girl decided to take the opportunity to run away. She struggled to get away. The mercenaries were furious that Wood hadn't told them the girl was a wizard. Wood yelled that if they let him go and killed her, he would pay them a lot of money. He didn't want to lose her as he was close to massacring her. The mercenary took Nivea and was about to dispose of her when the girl used her power. Nivea flew toward the ground and contemplated death. She didn't want to die at all. Since she had already achieved quite a bit in her escape, Nivea woke up. She was glad she was still alive. She realized she was right where she wanted to be. Nivea wanted, without wasting time, to talk about her future life. The girl saw on the table some guests for her, as well as medicine. Nivea walked up to him and said a polite hello. He was angry with the girl and didn't want her in the house. He didn't like that she was so adept at etiquette. He yelled at her and, grabbing her by the arm, started dragging her into a dark room to lock her in. Duke Esselred came and intervened. The Duke intervened in their scuffle and protected the girl. His brother was in shock. There was no way he... Nivea thanked Duke for stepping in. She began to tell the story of her emergence. But the Duke interrupted her and said she had no need to speak to him like that. She told the whole truth and said he could take advantage of her. He asked why he would adopt her. But the girl said she would bring him good money and connections in the future. But unfortunately, the Duke looked at the girl intently. He was interested in how she wanted to get rid of the Earl. Nivea said it's a secret. He touched her hair. Nivea decided to take the opportunity to stock up on magic, but it didn't work out. The Duke realized what the girl... The Duke said there would be a lot of trouble from her, so he would keep her alive, but she must go. Nivea decided not to give up. She made a few more arguments. After thinking for a moment, the Duke decided he disappeared, leaving the girl alone. She in a big house and thinking about a challenging situation. The young lady met Minerva. While Minerva was doing the bandaging, Nivea asked her if she had healed her. The girl said it was her. Nivea thanked her profusely for that. The Duke called a servant and told him to bring the Count back to the house. He also said that the girl would be living in the house and needed to be looked after as she had a... Walking through the house, the Duke saw not just a mansion, but a coffin in which he lives and cannot die. He wanted a happiness that was so out of his reach. Any spurts of tenderness or happy moments triggered... The Empress sat pondering Agnes's family. She was frantic to see Nivea. She knew that the Duke's adopted child was not so simple. She also knew about their troubled relationship. She had been informed that a Duke had arrived at the Imperial Palace, and she was frantic to chat with him and find out more about all. Duke Agnes and Edward Spencer arrived at the Emperor's house. They discussed all the issues. Suddenly, their conversation was... They discussed the new title. The Duke also decided to discuss the engagement of his... The Duke and Edward Spencer rode in the carriage and discussed the past. Suddenly, the carriage was stopped. They didn't understand what was happening or why they were disturbed. The Earl of Esselred's estate informed the Duke that his son was in the carriage. The Duke realized his son had overstepped his bounds. He realized that he and his family would come to ruin. Such an act sullied his family. The Duke began to blame his adopted daughter for... Duke apologized for the whole situation and said he would pay compensation for the harm done, and he refuses to give up Nivea. The Count said he could have his son, and they'll take care of the bodies. The Count walked toward the Duke and thought of the girl. He was glad the girl had brought them money, they really needed it. But he was wary of the girl. He didn't understand why they had treated her so harshly. The Count said he did as the master commanded. The Duke said he would keep the girl for a year. He also added that he was well aware of Agnes's plans for his adopted daughter and native son. Nivea was asleep. The girl heard a pleasant odor and woke up. A beautiful woman came to visit her. That was Margarita Romanov. The girl huffed, but the woman said it was unnecessary. Margarita brought hot soup. Nivea was overjoyed and didn't understand why women were so kind to her. Nivea slept for half the day. Upon waking up, she decided to take a walk and saw the cookies. Nivea decided to give it a try since she had never eaten anything like it. She really liked the cookies and didn't notice she ate all the cookies. Her hands were all... Nivea wandered through the deserted mansion. Different thoughts crossed her mind. Suddenly, her musings were interrupted by the Count. Nivea said she was looking for a towel to wipe her hands. The Count said he would show her to her. They went to the bathroom. The girl was washing her hands, and the Count thought it must be very hard for her to do everything with all those scratches. Nivea said that she had done her business and could go. Nivea confesses to him that she knows he doesn't like her and knows. After talking, they walked back. They reached the steps and the Earl took her in his arms, for he knew it was very hard for her to go when her whole body was abrasions, and he decided to help her. As the Count carried Nivea in his arms, they met the doctor. She was puzzled. The Count said they had some business to settle. Their conversation was interrupted by Margaret. She was carrying a whole tray of sandwiches and suggested we all have tea. They all went to the room to drink tea. Nivea was overjoyed. She felt wonderful. She felt like this was her family. She asked if the Duke would come down to see them. She was told he had a slightly different schedule. Nivea asked if she could go up to him to talk to him. She was told that Nivea asked if she could write a letter to the Duke. Everyone was overjoyed as the Duke had never received a letter. They brought her everything she needed and showed her. Nivea handed the letter to the Count. The Count said she could address him simply as Schliemann. Schliemann brought the letter to the Duke. The one didn't want to open it and told him to burn it down altogether. But the Count took. The Duke felt his rebirth approaching. Ethelred's ancestor. They decided to use force on the baby that was in the womb. A man who was born with the power of the gods. The experiment was a success. Lark Ethelred, the strongest tool, was born. He later learned that mind control magic had been applied to him. But after several rebirths, he wanted to save his mother, but she went mad from the magic of other gods. After numerous reincarnations, he realized that his mother could not be saved. Each time, his mom burned all the documents. Duke wanted to do some good for the world. At first, everything was great, but later a traitor showed up. His assistant betrayed him. After all the events, Lark knew he would soon be reborn, since his body couldn't withstand the magic, and by the age of 31, he dies and is reborn as a boy of 8. Nivea received a letter from the Duke. He called her to work for him. A messenger came to the Duke. He brought a letter from Duke Agnes. Nivea saw the letter being brought in. Nivea told all her new friends that she would never hurt them, and she wants to make a deal with the Duke. The girl knew how events would unfold. She offered several ways to decouple the task, but everyone turned out to be like that she was sacrificing herself. After listening to her, the Earl said that would not do. Nivea was in shock. She didn't know what she should do. But Earl said she just needed to ask for help. It was unbearably difficult for Nivea because of her past lives. The girl gathered her strength and asked them to help her. The woman hugged the girl strongly and lovingly and told her they would help her. Nivea was very surprised to see the gentlemen cooking by themselves in the kitchen. The girl wanted to help them. She was given an assignment. They were eating. Minerva remembered that she wanted to give something to the girl. Nivea saw a marvelously beautiful dress. She was thrilled with what she saw. The girl thought her clothes were from a boutique. She thanked Minerva. The Count said he had to go shopping, asked the girl what she would like. But the young lady said she didn't want anything and thanked him, but he decided to get her something sweet. Nivea tried on the dresses. She really liked it. The girl thanked Minerva profusely. She also got a nice haircut. Nivea asked Margaret to give the Duke a letter. The woman dropped off the Duke's food and left a letter on. Nivea wrote that the gentleman still can't decide on a job for her. The girl asked him to choose a job for her. Minerva was just about to go to him and take the medicine to him, so the young lady decided to take the opportunity to pass on the letter. The Duke read the letter. In it, Duke relayed the answer. He was a bit harsh in the letter, saying she should thank him for giving her something at least. Nivea thought about it and remembered her past life. Minerva quickly ran into the study, left the letter, and ran off. In it, the girl apologized and thanked him for pointing out her mistakes. After reading Margaret's letter, she decided she needed to punish the Duke a little. Margaret and Minerva picked out clothes that fit the hairdresser. The Count walked into them. He had already bought everything he needed and was free. After finding out what was, Nivea gave him a very nice haircut. Everyone really liked the new style of Graf. He paid her money for her work, after which they all went to the kitchen in unison. Nivea was trying coffee for the first time. She didn't like it very much as it tasted bitter. To cut down on the bitterness in your mouth, she asked if the Duke had any food preferences, but just heard he hasn't been eating well lately. Nivea asked if she could occupy the kitchen for a while. The girl wanted to make the Duke some appetizers. Nivea baked a cake and asked the Count to take it to the Duke. The Count took it to the Lord, but he would not accept it and said to take it back. The Count said the girl gave him a nice haircut, left the pie on the table, and walked away. The girl had many talents. Duke decided to go downstairs and take the pie to the kitchen. As he reached the kitchen, he heard laughter, and Duke Agnes came to a man to order the murder of a little girl. The man said that there were mages in the house who had been through the war, and that could complicate matters. The Duke assured me that he would pay in full for doing business. The gentleman wished Nivea a good night's sleep, and she went to rest. She reflected on their little family. She really enjoyed living with them. Suddenly, a killer enters her room. But the girl was sleeping peacefully. The Duke was in her room and was able to stop the intruder and deal with him quietly. He sat on the edge of the bed and contemplated the girl. Various thoughts visited him, and all of them he drove away. The Duke remembered how forward of rebirth he had met the young lady. Remembering past events, the Duke didn't notice the morning had come. Nivea woke up and didn't realize she had a Duke wanting in her room. He only said that the girl should get to her duties and not sleep late. They went down together to the office where Nivea was getting haircuts. Duke said he wanted to change his hairstyle and cut his hair short. Nivea hesitated a little, for he had been growing his hair for 9 years. The man took a pair of scissors and cut off a long strand. The Empress descended into the dungeon. She wanted to know how the work on her perfect weapon was progressing. The Empress looked at the boy and thought that she was very lucky to learn about the gift of foresight that a woman kidnapped a child and kept him locked up in order to awaken the magic of foresight. The Duke paid for the haircut with a gold coin. Nivea was overjoyed, but said silver would be enough. Suddenly, he felt sick. Nivea asked if he was okay and wanted to approach, but the Duke told her not to come any closer and retired to his chambers. He was angry. Margaret came to him, and in a fit of anger he told her not to give the girl any work. Margaret went to Nivea and informed her that the Duke had said not to entrust her with anything. The girl realized she had to sit quietly and keep her head down. Alvin had come to the manor since morning. He brought 2 maids and said he had a daughter himself and knew how difficult it was without maids. The Count said they didn't need them. Alvin was Nivea decided to settle the conflict and accept his help. She was already running through her thoughts on how the maids could be used. Leaving the servants behind, Alvin hurried away. The girl told Schliemann that she wanted to eat. He in turn realized the girl was slowing something down and sent the maids to the kitchen. The girls were shocked as they were only told to pretend not to serve them. After they left, the girl asked the count to buy her a coat and shoes. She gave him a gold coin. Schliemann said he had already bought everything and asked him to hide the money. Duke Agnes was furious that the mercenaries never managed to kill Nivea. He thought someone had helped her, but he didn't understand why or what for. In order to find out the details, he had to visit the imperial palace. Arriving at the imperial palace, everyone was a bit puzzled by the situation. The gentlemen began to get to grips with the situation. The maids scooped up the food and carried it to the room. On the way, they talked at the top of their voices about the house and the meager food. When they got to the room, they got a little rough. Nivea paid no attention to it. Minerva, on the other hand, said she would show them to their quarters. She led them into a room and showed them where they would be staying. Also added that in and out of the house they should keep their mouths shut. They said they understood. Minerva was about to leave when she suddenly fell down. It was being stepped on her foot that led to this situation. She fell and her glasses came off. One of the maids crushed her glasses. Minerva was desperate. Minerva sat on the floor in despair. Suddenly Nivea came in. She picked her up and took her to Margaret. Minerva said she was a child out of wedlock and was already used to being humiliated and beaten. Also said that the Duke saved her by taking her to his house. The Count came in and told them that all the outfits would be brought in tomorrow. He told Nivea that she was right in saying that Thorvin would send the letter. The Duke said the compensation would soon arrive at the estate. Nivea read it, but learned nothing new to her. The Duke, on the other hand, read and was perplexed. He wondered how it was possible to be such people. The man asked Nivea if she had a plan to protect their home, and he said he would listen to her in all things, that she might help. The maid went, telling all the news to her master that had taken place on the estate. The maids were whispering and wondering what they could do for Nivea. They wanted to put a mouse in her bed, and yet they did as they intended. The maids brought her food, and we wanted to help Nivea take a bath. The girl said she could handle herself, but the maids insisted on their own. Minerva came and saved Nivea. The girl said it was time for a checkup. Margaret's here. She met the maids and informed them that their master had come, and he wished to speak to them. Nivea and her friends saw a mouse in the bed. The girl realized that the maids had slipped her. She decided to punish them. The maids met with their master, and he told them that guests were to arrive at the estate soon, and they were to greet them with a big welcome. And if all goes well, they'll take over the estate. The maids returned to the girl and saw her in bed. They didn't know if she had seen their surprise. The girl said she wanted to get some sleep, so they were free to go. The maids are gone. As they walked down the hallway, they noticed shadows. Nivea applied to them the magic they applied to her. They were so frightened that one of the maids ran from the manor with all their feet. Watching them, the girl realized that she might have had someone break into the room. She took a stationery knife and decided to hide. Nivea's place was broken into at night by assassins. The Duke realized that someone was making another attempt on the child's life. He came down. Nivea attacked the Duke in the commotion. She later apologized and thanked him. The Duke said that the girl brings only trouble and asked her to stay out of his sight. Wood was very angry that it was not possible to kill Nivea. She had ruined his life and screwed up his face, so he frantically wanted her dead. Nivea brought new outfits. Trying them on, she looked gorgeous. A maid came in and was asked why she was alone. But she said her friend was ill, and she decided she shouldn't come to the estate. Count Alwyn is here. He was furious as the girl was still alive. Alvin made a Sora. He was told that he shouldn't behave like that before guests came over. In a fit of anger, he said many unpleasant things and left. When everyone was gathered in the room, Nivian informed them of her plan, her future work. Everyone really liked what she had. They met with the Duke and the teacher. The teacher said he wanted to test the girl's knowledge. The teacher told Nivea that he would help her become a mistress and have power over others. After thinking over his words and his behavior, Nivea didn't like it. She decided to get rid of him. The girl finished her conversation and went downstairs. That's where she saw Wood. He was furious that he was stopped. He didn't have time to do anything before the girl used magic. The girl was caught, the maid holding her tightly, but Nivea managed to break free and ran away. As Nivea ran, Wood saw her. He decided not to waste a moment and aimed his gun and fired. As usual, the Duke intervened. He saved her. At the noise, all the gentlemen came running. They realized Wood was the shooter. Duke Agnes was shocked by his son's actions. He could only ask how he could make amends. The Duke said he must relinquish custody of the girl. Duke Agnes was shocked. He said it wasn't that easy, but still made the magic pact and hastily walked away. Count Alwyn began to shout in his wake that it was all Duke Esselred's fault. The man was furious and chased Alwyn away from the house. Nivea woke up and saw that she was not in her chambers. The girl didn't understand what was going on or why she was in the other room. She asked to be told what had happened. Nivea was pleased, but also mind-numbingly excited about what had happened. Nivea got a visit from Charlotte. The girl wanted to work for them. Charlotte said she wanted to pay her for her goodness. Nivea was persuaded to accept it. Everyone gobbled and welcomed Charlotte into their ranks with great joy. Nivea said she wanted to go to the Duke personally. Margaret asked her if she needed an escort, but the girl said she could handle her. She was on her way to her chambers to pack up and go to the Duke. The girl changed her clothes and tidied up her hair. Nivea entered the Duke's chambers and began a conversation with him. She thought to herself that his chambers looked very gloomy. Nivea was conversing with the Duke. She wanted to talk about her business, but he beat her to it, saying he already knew. Nivea left the office. Margaret asked her how it went. The girl said she was fine and had succeeded. Nivea said the girl agreed to her suggestion, and they went together to the Duke told the Earl to hire a bodyguard for Nivea since there had been several assassination attempts. Nivea woke up very early and decided to make breakfast. She prepared a meal and decided to drop off the Duke, a little fumbling in front of the door. Deciding to leave without going in, Nivea saw the Duke. He told her to come in. The girl wanted to sit on the chair, but it was too high. The Duke helped her by using magic. They sat down to eat at a table. The Duke and Nivea were eating and making. Their cheerful conversation was interrupted by an attack of the Duke's illness. He told Nivea to leave. The Duke didn't want her to see him like this. Nivea decided to go to town. She wanted to benefit the Duke, and for that she needed information. Walking towards the store, she thought about all the problems and the solutions to them. Nivea thought for a moment. Unexpectedly for her, she was pushed. The girl saw a young man with the same blonde. The young man apologized and invited her to a coffee shop to make amends. Nivea didn't want to, but went with him nonetheless. She was headed there for information. He invited her into his office, telling her they brought treats. The girl ate it all up. She didn't know him. He never showed up in her past lives. The shopkeeper asked Nivea what she needed in a place like this. The girl decided not to beat around the bush for long and told him everything. She had a soft spot for some information. The Lord offered her a magical contract with him. They signed it and Nivea left. When she went, the Duke sat thinking about Nivea. He wanted to see her. Asking Margaret where the girl was, he was furious. The Duke was afraid she would leave him. He frantically feared that she was gone forever because of him. The Duke stood at the gate and waited for her. He was frantic to see her. He couldn't go outside the mansion. Magic wouldn't let him. Nivea's back. She got a ride from a new friend. The girl saw the Duke. He was pale and all wet. The Duke apologized to her for his behavior. Nivea said it was fine and he had nothing to apologize for. Unexpectedly to her, he collapsed and lost consciousness. The girl didn't know what to do. She called for help. The young master summoned his servant Ricardo. He gave him an assignment. God wanted to know everything about the girl and if what she said was true. Upon returning to his estate, the Count visited the carver Ricardo and gave him an assignment from Nivea. The carver was greatly surprised that his mistress was Nivea. Nivea felt very strongly about the Duke. She blamed herself for him being in such a terrible state. Margaret comforted her and reassured her. Charlotte brought Nivea's breakfast. She switched the ladies who had been watching him all night. She went to the Duke's room. The girl saw him and what condition he was in. Nivea tended to him for a bit and left. Count Alwyn and his daughter arrived. From the moment they arrived, they were already out of sorts. Alvin said to get Margaret immediately. Nivea said the woman was resting, but he shouted Nivea needed a cure for Duke, so she decided to play a little game with Alvin, to do things the way he wants them done. Walking down the hallway, the girl saw Charlotte. She said she brought the anesthesia. The girl didn't want anyone to see Charlotte. Nivea made her her shadow. The young mistress and her maids looked at Nivea with disdain and threw all her belongings into the hallway and stomped on her. Charlotte brought Nivea a blanket to keep her warm. They entered the room and saw that all of Nivea's belongings had been cut up. Charlotte apologized to Nivea. Nivea decided to take a little revenge on the girl and her maids for what they had done. Masha walked with the maids and discussed the house and what they had done. Just as suddenly they saw the mess in the closet and the cut-up dress. Masha was very angry. She knew who did it. She screamed for Nivea to be found and brought to her. The maid said she was nowhere to be found and that she might be on the 3rd floor. Masha went looking for Nivea. She made a fuss over the search. Nivea was coming down from the 3rd floor. The girl started screaming why Nivea could go in there and she couldn't. Masha raised a scream, but Nivea managed to calm her down and she ran away. Nivea went to Masha. She wanted to talk to her. Masha sent her maids away and they were left alone. Nivea didn't bother. Alvin arrived at the estate. He was furious and said he would punish Nivea. Nivea walked down the steps. Alvin saw her. Nivea wasn't going to let him get away with it. She wanted to strike him, but the Duke beat her to it. He almost killed him in a rage, but Nivea stopped him, as killing Alvin might have disrupted her plans. Alvin starts talking about the legacy and that his daughter is the most fit to be the heir to the estate. The Duke said he would raise the heir himself, and that he's adopting Nivea. Alvin was shocked at what he heard. He would like to still figure things out. That's how he wanted to see his daughter as the heiress. Alvin was called by a servant, saying Nivea was surprised from what the Duke said. But I was very happy. He said she would now have his last name and a real family. Margaret saw her face and became furious. The Duke heard all that had been done to Nivea and became furious. He decided to wipe Alvin out. He wondered how such a fragile girl could endure so much.